Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning, January 25th, 2023. Only 11 months till Christmas, right? We will not be together tomorrow. I think some of you've heard we had applied for and received a grant to develop a funding program, an entrepreneurial program for at-risk individuals. And we did receive that award. So we're going to be meeting tomorrow, our leadership team, on finalizing that. So more details to come, but that's really a nice opportunity to provide funding for ex-felons and other at-risk individuals who may frankly struggle a bit to get reacclimated into society with a normal job, especially when they've gone from a high income, granted illegal, but high income profession to come out of prison and then be offered $12 or $15 an hour to work in fast food or retail. That's not going to fly with them, right? So this is a great opportunity to help at-risk individuals. We're working with a PhD that will be handling some of the soft skills in terms of interpersonal and dress for business dress and so forth. But more news on that. We just will not be gathering tomorrow morning as we're going to be working on that new at-risk program. Today, we're going to discuss the step-by-step process of client implementation. So I've had a couple of you newer white label partners come aboard and had asked for this, so we assembled it to go through it. This is not new, it's not different, but it's just revisiting the process. So if you're an affiliate, this really doesn't apply to you. If you are a white label partner, this definitely does apply to you. So our topic is step-by-step process of client implementation. So the first thing that the white label partner does is upload 2 key documents into Dropbox. Frankly, it used to be that we set up a different Dropbox folder for each client. Now it's typically most convenient to set up a subfolder in your white label partner Dropbox, so that way you easily have access to the client files. So that's the way that we're normally doing it now. So again, as you become a white label partner, we provide a Dropbox that's loaded with a number of different agreements and resources. All you would do is just create a subdirectory for each client, and that's where the client's documents would go. Hopefully that makes sense. So the 2 documents that the white label partner needs to upload would be the signed agreement. We've talked about this before, but just to make it crystal clear. As a white label partner, you are contracting with the client on behalf of you. That's why it's called white label. You're going out to the marketplace under your branding, your umbrella. We provide you the agreement template. You modify it as you wish, and including pricing. And then you, the white label partner, contract with the client. So that's the agreement we're talking about here. So for example, you, the white label partner, determine what the performance fee is for the client. So let's say that you want them to have a very low, well, you could offer them 0% performance fee if you wanted. We've had some of you go very high, up to about a 50. Right? It's up to you what you want to contract your clients at. But regardless, we need to know. And so the performance fee would be uploaded. I'm sorry, the agreement would be uploaded here with your terms and your performance fee. The second document that needs to be uploaded by the white label partner is the completed funding proposal application. You'll also find this in your white label partner Dropbox. It's a 1-pager, and that gives us the initial data set that we need to get first tranche financing, which we'll talk about in a moment, offers for the client. So if you're a white label partner, you need to get, first, I would get them under contract, and then second, and distinctly second, then if I were you, then I would have them complete the funding proposal application. Once both of those are in your white label partner Dropbox, then what do? We move on to number 2. Let us know. Let us know. Now, I know that we're setting up the white label partner Dropbox, and so you could say, well, Tom, you guys already have access to it, but we have we're blessed. We have so many of you, and so there's so much activity. So technically, we do get notifications every time there's a change in a white label partner's Dropbox. We need you to let us know when you're ready to process that client. So in other words, you might just have the agreement from the client initially that you upload. Well, we don't need to do we can't really do anything with it yet. But once you have the agreement and the proposal, just let us know. Send us a quick email. Sound good so far? Any questions? So no changes, just going through the process. So then the question becomes, well, what happens then? Well, once you've notified us, I'll scroll down, then us, BPC, we're going to look for first tranche financing options for the client. There's no hard inquiry, so we don't have to worry about the client coming back and say, oh, you ran my credit a million times and now my credit's a shambles because of all the inquiries. There'll be no hard inquiries. We'll look at the data that's gathered from that one-page app. The top of the app gathers some information about the business, very basic. Bottom gathers some basic information about the individual. It's a simplified app. All we're trying to do is get the first tranche of financing to get them at least $2,500 so they can pay you the refundable deposit so we can go build their loan package. We'll talk about that in more detail as we go through the process. So do some people get more than just $2,500? Sure, take Aundria, for example. I was just talking to her yesterday. She got $77,000, 77,000 for her first tranche finance. She's received it. It's in the bank. So do some people get more than the $2,500? Obviously so, but some people will only get the $2,500. We don't know what they'll qualify for, and it's really not about what they want. It's about getting them at least $2,500 so they can pay you the refundable deposit. So you got money coming into your coffers, and we can go build a loan package, which we'll talk about in a moment. So there's really only two different scenarios. Now, the funding could come from a bunch of different lenders and so forth. But so there's lots of variations there, but it's going to fall into one of two buckets. Either the client for their first tranche financing will either get cash funding, and if they don't get any cash funding offers, then we'll offer them 0% financing for the $2,500 refundable deposit to build their loan package. So is there an upfront cost for the Access to Capital program? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They enrolled up here. There was no money exchanged unless you're doing something on the side. But in our model, there's no money up front. Now, I do know a few of you are charging like a $99 application fee. That's outside of our arrangement. But there's no upfront cost with our agreement. We get the application, we see what they qualify for, again, with no hard inquiries, and it's going to be one of two things. Either they get a cash funding offer, or if not, we'll get them 0% finance. So then they'll get access to that. And then, of course, whichever bank or lender or financing institution is extending to them the financing, there'll be repayment terms. Every once in a while, you have someone that's very financially illiterate and say, well, wait a second, I'm going to have to pay back the first tranche of financing? Well, yeah. So let's say they got, well, let's take Aundria, for example. She got and she didn't think this, she's smarter than that, but she got 77,000. Are there going to be some sort of repayment terms on that 77,000? Well, sure. It wasn't a money fairy that just put money under the end of the rainbow that she picked up. It's financing, it's funding for her business. So sure, there's going to be some sort of payment arrangement on either of these, of course. Now, what it will be dependent upon the source of capital. All right, so then, okay, well, let's pause there. So we've covered, you upload the documents into Dropbox, you notify us, and then we're going to find out what type of first tranche financing they qualify for. Then we will let you know. And so then you, as the white label partner, will want to assist the client in that process. Now, the truth is with Aundria, the 77,000, again, that's true and accurate, but it was actually two sources of capital. I don't remember the exact breakdown. One was 30-some thousand, one was 40-some thousand, I think. I don't know. But the point is, a client, and she turned it off. She stopped. She had access to more. And she said, no, that's enough first tranche financing. I should know. But the point is, we'll let you know what the client qualified for, and then you need to encourage them to accept, right? Because they owe you the $2,500, and we need the $2,500 to be paid to you so we can go build a loan package. It's the refundable deposit. So if they get a cash funding offer, you will invoice the client, and the client will pay you the deposit. Normally it's a $2,500 refundable deposit, but again, it's your contract with the client, so you can adjust it as you want. And then they'll pay you the performance fee, whatever performance fee you chose. Maybe you waive that. Maybe you're charging them 50%. Maybe it's somewhere in between. That's between you and them, right? You have a written agreement with them. We know that. And so you're going to bill them because you have the contract with them. That's if it's cash funding. Now, if the client did not receive cash funding, instead, we had to kind of go to the fallback, the 0%, then in that case, normally we will administer that. And so that's 0% interest for the $2,500 refundable deposit covering the loan package. We spread that out over low $100 payments. People love it. Okay, so I'm going to stop here because at this point, I'm going to pause, I should say, because at this point, we've covered kind of the front end process. We got the client under contract, we got the app, we got them funding offers, they've accepted the funding offer, and they've paid the refundable deposit. So now we're ready to roll up our sleeves and start building the loan package. But let's pause on 1 through 4. Who has questions on 1 through 4? And Corey asked, and I just answered. The 0% financing has a $99 app fee and low $100 payments. Thank you for that question. Anyone else have questions on the first 4? Any question? Any question? Okay. And again, if you don't like the client pricing, what you need to do is go over and look in the mirror, because you control the client pricing, right? It's your agreement with the client. See 1A, you're determining what the client pays, not us. Now, we have an agreement with you and we're doing 50-50 split and all that, but you have the contractual agreement with the client. If you're paying the client, charging the client too much or too little, look at yourself in the mirror, adjust your contract, right? It's you, it's not us as a white label partner. Okay, so now we're going to move into more of the implementation. Everybody ready? All right, so now we're on to number 5. So what normally happens for our white label partners is they will collect the loan package documents. There's a list of around a dozen items. We have a form that's called Building Your Loan Package Adobe that provides you a good roadmap of what we're looking for. I say this with both disappointment and to reiterate, it's not all or nothing. It's not all or nothing. So, we ask for the business's last 3 years of tax returns. I'll have people that seemingly can't think very deep and will say, well, the business hasn't been open for 3 years. Well, okay, then you obviously wouldn't have 3 years of tax returns. It says throughout that form, if applicable, if applicable, if applicable. Let's say the client has been open for 3 years, just for example's sake, but has never filed taxes. Well, then would you provide those tax returns? Obviously not. We're trying to collect what the client does have available so we can put together a funding plan. We're not asking the client to go back and file back taxes for 3 years. So I think some of our partners, I think you all are just so smart and so experienced that you make things too complicated. So there's the list of the documents, and if the client has it, get it and put it in the Dropbox. And if they don't have it, guess what? You won't get it, and you won't put it in the Dropbox. Imagine that. Sorry for the sarcasm, but it's not meant to be a Mensa quiz. We just simply need to gather the documents that the client does have. Now, from that, and we'll get to that point, we can work on improving documentation, adding documentation, things that are missing. That's fine. But we just need the initial data set to know what we're dealing with. Make sense? Now, I will add that the soft credit pull and the personal financial statement should be probably the first two things that you get. And it's on that Building Your Loan Package Adobe. If you don't have that, let us know and we can send it to you again. But certainly the PFS, the personal financial statement, and the soft credit pull are great starting points for the data set. I had a client this morning that I talked to, and I won't mention her name because I don't want to embarrass her. I don't want to be disrespectful. But, first thing out of her mouth is, I don't have a PFS. And I said, well, ma'am, that's okay. We're going to help you put that together. I said, prior to our call, I had a scheduled call through this morning. I said, ma'am, before our scheduled call, I sent you an email with the form and the instructions. And she got a little bit agitated. You don't understand. I don't have a PFS. Well, ma'am, that's okay. We're going to put one together. That's an important part of the loan package. And frankly, I'm happy to resend you the email right now if that would be convenient. So you just have to realize you're dealing with a lot of different people, and a lot of them are not as smart as you. They're not as sophisticated as you. They're not as financially literate as you. So if you treat them with love, you treat them with care and with patience, we'll get them where we need to be. But just understand in this role, and again, affiliates don't have to worry about any of this drama, but those of us that are white label partners, we're working with people that sometimes just aren't as smart as you. All right, so now we're on to number 6. So then again, you, the white label partner, and I know some of you have staff and teams, so you would let me know via whomever in your organization is managing the data collection. But once the data, the documents that are available, referenced in 5, are now in the Dropbox, you want to let us know, and then that allows us to move the file along. So ideally, if we talk about timeline, day 1 is getting the client contracted. First, get them contracted. Then secondly, get the app. Let us know of that. Ideally, the next day, we can get them their first tranche financing options. So very quickly. How long that takes to fund will depend upon the funding option, but normally they'll be funded within a week. And so once they have paid you the refundable deposit that they owe you contractually, then you need to start working on the loan package documents. Now, some of you are very generous with your time. So even though they've not paid the deposit or they're not set up to make payments, even on the refundable deposit, you start working with them. And you could do that. But frankly, it's probably more motivating to the client to pay you if you don't start working until they pay their invoice. But regardless, once you do have the documents that are available, put them in Dropbox, let us know, and then we're going to push the file onto the funding committee. Well, what's this funding committee? Well, the funding committee is on our end. We normally meet twice a week, Wednesday evening, Saturday mornings. But what we're doing is we're looking at the data set of the client and creating a funding plan. And it very well may be that we need to go work with the client on certain areas to strengthen the file. It may be that it looks like the client's ready to move forward at that time. But regardless, the funding committee are those eyes that are looking at the data set to create the funding plan and to make recommendations. So that's here on number 7. So again, it's not all or nothing on the document set. Provide us what they do have to start with, and we'll work from there. So as mentioned on A, scroll down. If the client appears to be ready based upon an identified funding source, what does that mean? So we need to look at the data set and come to a conclusion of where we should go get funding, or at least the next tranche of funding. And if it looks like they're ready for that, then awesome. We'll go to funding right away. Let's say alternatively, we're missing some key documents, or there's issues with the documents, or the client has credibility issues. Not a problem. Then we will coordinate with you to resolve. Okay, so let me make it a bit smaller to maybe make it harder to read, but I just want to make sure we can see that whole process. So who has questions about this? All right, so Corey's got a question. No, we don't typically allow outside parties on the funding committee because we're reviewing very delicate and very personal information about client files. And so, but prior to that, so your goal, Corey, to be involved with that, you kind of quasi are, right? Because informally, you're working with the client to gather those documents, and then you're uploading the documents. And so certainly we can interface even before the client goes to the funding committee. So to a certain extent, you kind of are an extension of the funding committee by being the white label partner. All right, and then the next question is, does our obligation to pay commence when they accept the first tranche? Okay, so as a white label partner, I'm going to restate that. I know what I said wasn't clear. So as a white label partner, you have two contracts. A client contract, which we've talked about here, that you sign with each client, that's the promises they make to you and you make to them. And then separate from that, there's an agreement between us and you, the white label partner license agreement. So they all work in cohesion and harmony, but you're right, Corey. So there's two different agreements. And so we want to make sure that all parties are following all agreements. All right. And okay, so we got a question about credibility. So let's get down to this. So JP's asking, and that's right. There's going to be some clients that come to the table and they lack the credibility that's needed for the type, amount, or what have you of the funding that's requested. So does that blow it all up? Does that mean we can't help the client, that we send them on their way? Absolutely not. That's our secret sauce, JP. What we do is we assist clients in becoming credible enough to get funding. Well, what does credibility mean? Well, part of it is having, the documentation, of course, for the loan package. Part of it also is hopefully having the financial literacy, which we have built into the model. And it also includes being credible on paper with the 3 C's. And so you're exactly right, JP. If you have a client that's not credible enough, then we will work together to formulate a plan to help them improve their credibility or documentation, whatever those issues are. But what I feel like you're asking, JP, is exactly here on 7B. Now, some people say, well, give me step by step on that. Well, we can. It varies tremendously by client. I'll give you another example. I have a client named John, real client. John has a couple of credibility issues that we're working with him on, but one of which is he has very high revolving credit card utilization. And so that is depressing or reducing his credit score. So we've come up with a plan to be able to reduce his high revolving utilization, to remove that as a barrier and be able to go on with the next tranche. So it varies tremendously. There's just, I don't think, an earthly way that we could draft out a process flow for a million different scenarios. We need to look at the file and come up with a plan if the client has credibility or documentation issues. As far as the other question we have here on the table is funding sources. Yeah, so there's all different types of funding sources. We're independent, right? We're technical advisors. And so if the client's best suited for JP Morgan Chase or Bank of America or Wells Fargo or PenFed Credit, I mean, there's numerous, almost infinite number of different types of funding and lenders of those types of funding. So we will come to that conclusion, to that recommendation based upon the loan package documents collected and the funding committee's review. But we're independent, so we're not here just looking for loans for Wells Fargo, and if they don't meet Wells Fargo's underwriting, then they're sent on their way. All right, so who else thinks of those questions? Randy asked, do we have partnerships with lenders? Yes, so we have established, I don't know if I'm going to call it a partnership, I don't know that that's the correct legal term, but yes, we have agreements with numerous lenders, and that offers many benefits. But that shouldn't be misinterpreted to think that people don't have to meet the underwriting criteria. They do, right? And that's why we put together the documentation, so we meet that, and then to make sure they meet the credibility standards. All right, and so JP asked, for business funding, do you need the Social Security number? Yeah, we need to know who the client is. From the Patriot Act on down, we need to know who the client is that we're working with. So in many cases, business funding won't report on the personal credit, but we still need to know. And pretty much, maybe all, but I hate to go that far, but pretty much all lenders will want to know who is the owner or who are the owners. And that brings up a good point, not JP's question specifically, but typically, if there's any owners with 20% or more ownership, they're usually going to need to be included in the loan package. That's a general rule, typically correct. So if you have two 50-50 partners, they're both going to need to participate, right? We're going to need data from both of them because lenders will care. If you have an 80-20 split, then we're going to typically need the data set from both, the 80% owner, the majority, and the 20% minority. However, once we get below that 20%, let's say it's an 81% owner and a 19% owner, in many cases, then we won't need the data from the minority owner or owners. Great questions. But ultimately, it's very important to understand what we do, you and I. We're technical advisors. We help build financial literacy, build loan packages, and help clients become credible enough for funding. We are not the lender. We're not the underwriter. We can make assumptions and predictions and inferences of, will the client meet the underwriting criteria? And if so, make a recommendation. But we don't have delegated underwriting. That's not our role, and we don't portray that to be the role. So if the lender wants something that the client's not willing to give, then we can move on to a different lender. And in our model, clients are not required to accept funding offers, and they're not required to pursue a funding plan that they don't believe is in their best interest. We don't get some sort of crafty power of attorney where we pretend to be them, and then all of a sudden they have commitments that they don't like. That's not the case at all. We do not have powers of attorney. We do not pretend to be the client. There's nothing gray at all. So the client's in charge. The client's in the know. And remember, these are smart people. These are CEOs of small businesses, even if they're pre-revenue. These are smart people. They know what they're doing. We're providing them the assistance, the support, the resources to get the funding they need so they can reach their potential. All right. Well, we covered a lot and just short of 30 minutes. Any other questions on the process? My advice to you, if you're one of our newer white label partners, my advice is keep it simple. Understand how to do this. And if you can do number one, we can kind of figure out the rest together. And after you have one or two deals going, then you'll probably be very comfortable. The worst case scenario is you never do number one, right? Because if we never enroll any clients, you won't generate any income. We're not helping anyone, and you're probably then going to be in default of your white label license agreement. So if you can focus on number one, we can work through the rest. But number one is the foundation of all this. You need to be able to get clients under contract and get a funding proposal app from them and upload it into Dropbox. Let us know. So that's, if you're new, that's the most important thing. We can figure out the rest as we go, but you got to be able to do number one and numbers 1 and 2. All right, so we've got some of our top producers on the line here. Alfred, Tony, for example, 2 of our big hitters this month. Alfred or Tony, do you have any comments, anything you'd want to share to the rest of the team? Your secrets to success, what you're doing to drive such massive numbers? Okay, I'll give them a moment to respond. JP has a follow-up. Yeah, so on credibility, we talked about the 3 C's: credit, collateral, and cash flow. If they have credit issues, we can help them with it, including inquiry removal, which is JP's question specifically. If they have collateral issues, we can help them with that. We can build their collateral. If they have capacity issues, I was talking to a different client, another example. His name's Tony also, but not Tony that's on the line here. I was talking to Tony this morning. Tony's fucking broke. He's just broke, right? So we're helping him with capacity. He needs some cash flow coming in right now to be able to pay the bills to keep his head above water as we're working on the capital raise. So that's an example of helping with capacity. So there's the 3 C's, which we've covered, I think, exhaustively in other trainings: credit, collateral, and capacity. If a client has an issue or shortfall in any one of those 3 areas, absolutely, we can help them with that. That's our secret sauce of moving people from not being credible enough for 100,000 or more to being credible enough, including removing inquiries, which is what JP just asked. All right, well, I think we've got a good grasp here of the step-by-step process. Again, for clarity, if we get to 7B, there will be some other action steps, but that varies by client. And so the standardized process is here. Here's the first 7 steps. The focus needs to be get clients under contract, get them in the white label partner Dropbox, allow us to get them their first tranche of financing. That gets you paid. So you got money coming into your coffers. Then you need to collect the loan package documents that they do have. It's not all or nothing. Let us know when you have those uploaded into the Dropbox. We'll get that to the funding committee, which meets again tonight, Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings normally. So with that being said, again, we will not have a Zoom tomorrow because we'll be working on that at-risk program I'm really excited about. We'll see you back on Friday morning. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.